of the Hanged Man, 2019. Suspension, stoppage. And we can't help but notice in the beginning of this year, 2019, that the government of the United States is suspended. We are truly entering into a suspended moment, or rather we are entering the year in a moment of suspension. So we are right on schedule. The Hanged Man is about immersion in a pure, unrippled, constant place. Ultimately, this place is in the center of the soul and the center of all eternity. That's the Hanged Man. This is a place of inaction, a voluntary withdrawal from doing. In this place, we move into pure meditation, pure being. This is the place and state that is called in the Western Mystery School the place of the unmoved mover. The unmoved mover. The one who could move all things, and even when moving all things, can also simultaneously move into a state of suspension even while doing. That's the Hanged Man deep within the self. This place of the unmoved mover is a place of where life essence resides, and the potential for life resides, and the activation of life resides. Our lives, what happens in our lives is that oftentimes they become centered, our thoughts become centered not in reality, but in our ideas about reality and our ideas about what we think ought to happen. And when we immerse in the Hangman, when we go into the deep place within ourselves, what happens is our ideas about reality can miraculously vanish as new ideas begin to come alive that we never previously imagined. By the way, it just occurred to me that that word idea, I-D-E-A, means I means indwelling, and D-E-A means Dea, goddess, indwelling goddess, idea. There we go. So what happens when we move into the Hangman energy is that we shed outmoded or misguided ideas. We strip away extraneous thought. And the first step would be to become neutral in the matrix. Okay, the matrix of the cosmos. We are inside the matrix of the cosmos. And the matrix of the cosmos is inside ourselves. We are living cosmos. And the first place we want to go within ourselves is a space of neutrality. So it's a space of release, it's a space of neutrality. And in this place we find a refuge. It's a refuge of pure, deep, clear reflection. It's a sanctuary in our inner beings. This is a place where we're safe from the breakdown of the 5 energy: pain, suffering, old age, and death, Gevura, on the tree of life. In this place, we're also safe from the swirlings of our mind. We suspend the swirlings of our mind. And the swirlings of our mind can have something to do with the 8th sphere on the tree of life, called Hod. In this suspended place, we sink into liberation from the transitory. We find freedom in the eternal. It's an inverted perspective. And in this inverted perspective, as the Hangman you can see is actually upside down, we can find the bliss of eternal peace. And we find that through stilling our consciousness. We still our consciousness, and then in this place we drink from the waters. The waters are cosmic nutrients, or they contain the cosmic nutrients. The waters are the cosmic well. The waters are cosmic consciousness. And they say, one who drinks from these waters will never thirst again. One will be transformed into cosmic consciousness and cosmic alignment. I'd like to read the meditation from Tarot of the Spirit on the Hanged Man. And for those who have ears to hear, these meditations in Tarot of the Spirit are not really poetry as much as they are a list of key words that surrounding the particular card. So when you hear the words, the idea is just to allow them to come in because they're abstract like poetry, but they're key words. So just listen. This is the meditation for Key 12, the Hanged Man from Tarot of the Spirit. Submersion in the element of illusion, suspension from dependence, crossed like an anchor, descending from light to dark, while the serpent of new life stirs beneath the waves at the bottom of the sea-green, deep dark depths and wells that are flat calm and churning with undulating currents. The will to surrender beyond that which is to that which was and shall become. The willing surrender to a flow beyond culture, back to womb, grave, tomb, shell, the shining home of the first reflection, a clear vision from immersion, sound waves traveling like lost and haunted bells across obstructive swells of limitation and defense, submersion to discover self as the vehicle for true ascent. Submersion to discover self as the vehicle for true ascent. And that self is like the Hindu self, self with a capital S, not the small self, but the deep self. The deep self is where we are headed. The esoteric title of the Hangman is it's called the Spirit of the Mighty Waters. The Hangman is the essence of clear meditation and receptivity. In this place, the mind becomes clear. The river flows through the body. This is the river of the depths of the cosmic sea. It's like currents in the cosmic sea, and there is a dissolution in this place into wholeness. When you look at the card, you can actually see the river flowing through the card. And here we encounter the soul of primal consciousness, which is the realm of pure creative potency. And that's where we're headed this year. That's what this year is about. The Hanged Man is primal water. The nature of water is stable and bonding. Water is still unless it's impacted by other elements. Water is receptive. Water is reflective. Water is also clear, and water is transparent. The intelligence of this card, all of the major arcana cards have intelligence associated with them, and the intelligence of this card, the Hanged Man, is called the stable intelligence. In stable intelligence, we begin to release this checkerboard consciousness that usually occupies us, checkerboard patterns in our everyday reflections between light and dark and all this movement. We release our opinions, we release our prejudices, and we become a perfect reflection of the mind of what I call the anima cosma, the soul of the cosmos. We enter into a state of direct or bare attention, seeing, hearing, and feeling what is. We become a direct reflection of what is, the isness. All the cards are cycles. And as we cycle through, we're going to experience different energies. Some of the energies of the Hanged Man that we will experience are stillness, clarity, repose, receptivity, safety, sustenance, renewal, awakening, transformation, transmutation. And we can move out in a state of joy into new consciousness where we can re-engage as we re-emerge, reborn. An emergence, it's like a birth. Sometimes we can enter the hangman in a state, when we move into a state of dissociation, as one of my friends who's a psychotherapist was pointing out to me, dissociation can be really good when if you're abused or something like that, you're in a situation like that, and then you begin to mentally dissociate from reality and from what's going on. This can be a really healthy response to getting out of an unhealthy situation. And this is sometimes what we do when we enter into the Hanged Man. We can have reactions to things that at first glance may not seem healthy, but later we can realize they're extremely healthy. And I'm going to give you an example of a strange thing that happened to me one time, which was I was a graduate student, and I was with some other graduate students, and I was with a professor, and we were going to a conference, and I think the conference was in Tahoe. Tahoe. So we flew into Reno, and it was winter, and then we were driving, and the professor was driving, and the graduate students were in the car, and we hit such tremendous weather, and the roads became black ice. It was just, so slippery and so icy and so scary. And so I was in the back seat looking over the edge, and I had absolutely no control in this situation, like absolutely zero control. And I had the strangest reaction. I fell asleep. I just fell asleep. I just went to sleep, and I didn't wake up until we came to our destination. And the other people were saying, they said to me, how could you do that? How could you fall asleep in a situation like that? And I said, I don't know, but I was glad I did, right? So I learned something that day. I learned that I had the ability to zone out if I needed to. And I also became aware that animals do that. Animals will do that. If they think they're going to die or something, they will zone out. It's like a shock state, going into shock or going into a state of complete removal. And let's say the predator might think that they're dead or something and walk away and leave them, and then they'll wake up. Or if you've ever found a bird that flew into a window, and then it'll be in a state of shock for a little while, but then it'll just get up and fly away and it's fine, but it'll be in shock. So going into shock can also be a part of the Hanged Man. That can be the start of it, what starts to get us into that place. But then we will start going through all the different layers and levels of the Hangman. For us as spiritual students, we want to be able to enter into the Hangman at will, at will, without being traumatized, without being in a state of shock, without being harmed. We just want to be able to move into it. The Hangman is, it's number 12, as I mentioned before. 12 is 1 and 2, 1 and a 2, and 1 and 2 makes 3. And so the hangman is numerologically related to the number 3. It, quote, reduces to the number 3. The Empress is number 3 in the major arcana, and the Empress is pregnant. She's pregnant, and she is giving birth to everything that comes up through the imagination. Imagination is the key for the Empress. And in Hebrew, her Hebrew letter is called Dalet, which means door. So she is the doorway, and she is actually birthing form across the abyss, they say, from one world into the next. So what happens is she is responsible for the birth of everything that exists, of all that is. Okay, so she's related to the hangman, and the hangman is like the womb. The hangman is something like being inside the womb of the Empress. The number 3 in the major arcana is also related to all the 3s in all the suits. So the 3s in all the suits would be 3 of fire, 3 of water, 3 of wind, 3 of earth. And then additionally, well, the number 3 sphere is the sphere of creation. It's the sphere of generation. It's the sphere of genesis. It's the sphere of birth. And this number 3 also, because it is the sphere of generation and the sphere of birth, is also where the mothers are positioned on the tree of life. So the mothers live in or around sphere number 3 on the tree of life. And in truth, there's only one mother, and that one mother is the water mother. And water mother, because water relates to the emotions, and all the mothers relate to the emotions, and all the mothers are they're teachers and they're producers. So there's really only one mother, though, water mother, and water mother appears in the suit of fire, she appears in the suit of wind, and she appears in the suit of earth. And we'll talk more about that another time. So just trust me on this. There's one mother. She appears in all the suits, and she's related to the hanged man in the sense that she is something like the mother of the hangman or the guardian of the hanged man, something like that. Okay, and the hangman is also related to number 21, because number 21, which is the universe, also the 21, 2 and 1 is 3, so it also, quote, reduces to 3. So the universe is also related to the number 3, the Empress, and then the mothers and the number 3s that run through the 4 suits. Okay, so it's interesting that when we look at the universe card, what we're actually looking at is a birth canal. This is a birth canal to a new level of knowing. This is the last card in the deck, and the very next step is going to be entering into a new dimension, to the next dimension. So all of these numerologically are related to the hangman. The number 21, where the hangman could theoretically be emerging into a new dimension of emergence. And the mother energy and the 3 energy, which is the birthing energy. Okay, the hangman is about metamorphosis. So when we go into that place, that state of suspension, we move into a state of evolving consciousness where that which we perhaps once found outside, we now find inside of our own selves. We turn inward and we start finding those dimensions of answers that want to come through. This is the place of the imaginal cells. Okay, you know what the imaginal cells are? The imaginal cells? Okay, the imaginal cells, it relates to biology and metamorphosis. So these are biologists' descriptions, you know? So if you take the metamorphosis of a caterpillar into a butterfly, what happens, and this is very much like what is going on in the hangman energy, what happens is that caterpillar at one moment gets the urge to spin the chrysalis, basically, and surround the self with a protective shield, and then inside that protective shield begins a process which is actually literally a meltdown, because that being, that caterpillar doesn't just grow wings, right? It doesn't go into a cocoon and grow wings. That's not what happens. What happens is there's a complete meltdown of the being of the caterpillar, but the cells within the caterpillar are already existing to become the butterfly. So the caterpillar has these little horns, but when the horns melt down, there are these cells called imaginal cells, and those cells actually turn into antenna, right? And so the same with the wings, the whole being melts down, and the imaginal cells, I love this term, this is a real term, imaginal cells. Okay, so this is part of the metamorphosis process, and there are essentially 4 stages in this in the process from a biological point of view. And just to mention these 4 stages because it's so interesting. First stage is the egg, and the next stage is the larva. The caterpillar is like the larva, and then the next stage is the pupa, and the pupa is like the cocoon, the chrysalis, and then the final stage is called the imago, IMAGO, and that is the winged being that emerges from the chrysalis, right? So the hangman is like the chrysalis, and so when we emerge from that chrysalis, we are what is called in the Western mystery tradition a new living being on the path of free will. But there are a lot of stages there, because when we first come out of that chrysalis, first break out of that, we can be very vulnerable because our wings are wet, so there are these moments of intense vulnerability that goes along with it. And in those times and places, it's good for us to protect ourselves, keep ourselves protected while we're working with whatever energies are around us, and that's okay. The most important thing is to realize that we are in a situation of metamorphosis. We are morphing, we are changing, and we are learning, and we are growing. So the way I see this card, the hangman, visually, I always had this feeling about the hangman, that the hangman is a chrysalis or a cocoon on a branch, hooked to a branch, and the branch is in a river, like on the top of a river, like leaning over from a tree or something on the top of the river, and the river is going through, and the branch is just moving up and down in the currents like this, and the being inside of the cocoon is just disintegrating, but all the cells are there, all the imaginal cells are there, and it's going to reintegrate, and it's going to be reformed. But what's happening is there's no consciousness in this moment, or there's consciousness, but it's pure consciousness. It's the cosmic consciousness. It's the consciousness of all that is, and just the movement in the rising and falling of these energies in the river. And you can see in the hangman card, when you look at it, you see the river flowing through. The river's flowing through the hanged man, and the hangman is just rising and falling in that space. So that's how I see this place. It's what I think of as a removed place or a protracted space. It's set apart. It's a set apart kind of reality. So when we look at the card symbolism, we look at all the symbols on the card, we're very much symbolic beings. We think symbolically, and we're changed by symbols when we look at them. So we see suspension, and we see that the hangman is suspended on a cross and upside down. The hangman is upside down. And in this upside down state, or this inverted state, the pockets are all emptied out. Empty. Everything falls into the river. And we're going to be redefining ourselves in that space of the empty pockets. We're going to relinquish what has been. Now, this hangman is very loosely held. You see, not really tied, loosely held, very loosely. Could get out of this at any moment. It's voluntary. Okay. loosely held by the serpent of rebirth. Okay, when you think of the serpent, what do you think of? Anybody? Serpent energy.
Kundalini.
Oh, Kundalini. Oh, that's good. Kundalini energy. That's advanced for the serpent. Yeah, absolutely, because that's the energy rising, right? What else do you think of when you think of serpent?
Poison bite.
Oh, poison bite. Oh, that could really throw us into the cocoon too. I mean, that's definitely possible that it could throw us into an altered state of consciousness and straight into the cocoon.
Shedding skin.
Yeah.
Shedding skin. Okay, shedding the old skin. Yes. What else about the serpent?
Came from an egg.
Oh, it came from an egg. Oh, so there's the morphic process. Yes, it does come from an egg. Yeah. Anything else that comes to you? This is all what holds us in the space of the hangman. The serpent is also known for having 3 layers of consciousness, and what that means is going down into the ground, and that's the underworld or the underground consciousness, being on the surface or being up, going up. And so it's all 3 layers, all 3 levels, and the serpent can just move between worlds. So the serpent is one of those creatures who just moves at will between layers of consciousness or between worlds. So that's the serpent. So the hangman is in this place, floating inside the universal matrix, carrying within the self all of the formulae necessary for creating evolution. Whether I'm going to say he, it could be he or she, but whether he realizes it or not, we contain all of that evolutionary process within our own beings, within ourself, within our deep self. So it's like the chrysalis, and this is the deep inner journey of retreat, refuge, surrender, and the release of old forms. His eyes are closed and his hands are behind his back, symbolizing not doing. So this is a time of not doing. Now, if we take the Tree of Life overlay, this is the transparent Tree of Life that overlays all the cards. Every one of these cards in Tarot of the Spirit was painted on the Tree of Life pattern, which means that the Tarot of the Spirit is a hologram. Okay, so the Hanged Man is a hologram of the entire Tree of Life. And you can see when you look at the overlay, the transparent overlay, the meaning of the card. So, for example, the deeper meaning of the card. So, for example, the face of the hangman or the head of the hangman is in sphere number 9, fits in sphere number 9, which is Yesod. And Yesod is the sphere of the unconscious or the subconscious or cosmic consciousness or the collective unconscious. And that's where the head is. And then the leg, the right leg, the knee of the right leg is in sphere number 4, and it crosses over, and the toe is in sphere number 5. I should back up and say, just looking at the pattern of the legs, that the legs are in a 4 pattern. It's an inverted 4. Okay, so 4 indicates stability, and 4 indicates some kind of solidity, but then it gets turned upside down, so it's inverted. But nonetheless, the pattern on the card is that where the leg crosses here, crosses directly on the path of strength. So there is strength implied, and the knee is in sphere number 4, which is about stability. And then it crosses and it points into sphere number 5, which is about cataclysm. So something involving the relationship between stability and then the disruption of stability is implied by the position of the legs. But the 4 and the position of the legs being solidity, all that has to happen for this to become completely solid is to just reverse it. It needs to be reversed. It's going to be reversed when it completes its cycle and it's born, like being born again, something like that. The whole of the card is moving toward a point And the point actually exists in sphere number 10, and sphere number 10 is how we walk everything we've learned in the world of manifestation. The point is coming to a place of absolute clarity. That's what this is about. So we're shielded while we're in this space of the collective unconscious, or the cosmic consciousness, and the cosmic consciousness, I should say. We are immersed in a state of dreams and upwellings. We are doing the work or the non-work of metamorphosis, because we don't have to think about it. All we have to do is just release ourselves into the place, and then we begin to come to the point, and the point is absolute clarity. That's what the hangman is about. Interesting that the point is the point of a blade. Well, the point is water, which is really interesting because water is not much of a blade, which brings to mind for me the old a saying that I meditated on for many years, which was the anger of the Holy One is like a blade drawn on water. Okay, so you know what happens, the blade drawn on water. It just closes. So I love that. I love that the anger of the Holy One is a blade drawn on water. Okay, so for many years I meditated on this idea of the anger of the Holy One is a blade drawn on water. So I'm saying this to myself, your anger is going to be a blade drawn on water, But later, because sometimes I'm very slow, after meditating on this for like probably 6, 7, 8, 10 years, I don't know, what comes into my mind and what seems really significant is the first part of this statement, the anger of the Holy One. Like, really? The Holy One gets angry? Wait a minute. And then I start to realize, wait, these are very fundamental human properties, ways of understanding, ways of knowing, and reactions. Everyone gets angry. Everyone gets angry. But what we learn is we learn tools for how to deal with it. So theoretically, we could get through it faster and faster. And then it could become like a blade drawn on water. And the hangman is one of the ways of knowing, one of the ways of understanding that helps us move through, like a blade drawn on water, as we are moving toward the point, to the blade that cuts through. So this is a water sign, and what we see in the bottom of the card is we see an inverted triangle in the bottom of the card, and this is an inverted triangle, and the inverted triangle is the symbol for water. That is the symbol for water. So I was talking about the right leg being bent and moving between the 4 and the 5. The left leg actually goes up the middle pillar of the tree with the toe up in number 1, and up in the number 1 there's a portal. It's at the very top of the tree. There's a portal at the top of the tree that opens into the entire dimension of the field, the enveloping field. So this is like an opening into all that has been, all that is, and all that ever shall be. So that's where the toe is pointed, is up into that space. And also the arms on the card, the elbows actually are situated in sphere 7 and sphere 8. Sphere 7 is the sphere of the vision quest or the seeking, and sphere 8, which has to do with the power of the mind, is about naming what has come out of the vision quest or the seeking. So sphere 7 is about the seeking, and sphere 8 is about the finding. And the hangman has his elbows in each one in one of those spheres, but still with the hands behind the back not doing. So there's all this learning and all this sort of electrification or kundalini that can potentially happen in this space while not thinking about it, which is really interesting, I think. Okay, so, all right. So we see that the hanged man contains the tree of life, and at the same time is the tree of life. He is on the tree of life, and at the same time he is the tree of life. So he is the whole of the tree of life, and that is the holographic nature of this path. So the hangman connects spheres 5 and 8. This is the diagram of the tree. This is a diagram of the tree of life, and we see sphere 5 and sphere 8. Sphere 5 and sphere 8, and the hangman is the path between, right? The path between, right over here. So, interestingly, the hanged man then can be a way to move out of sphere 5 or move out of sphere 8, or move toward sphere 5 or move toward sphere 8. So sphere 5 is the sphere of cataclysm, of things falling apart, of things coming down, pain, suffering, old age, and death. You know, all of this stuff that can go wrong. The fires, the earthquakes, the floods, the tsunamis, natural disasters, losing all your money, getting sick, all of that stuff is connected. That's all 5 energy. Okay, so the hangman is one of the ways that we can move out of the 5 energy. And that is by going into that really deep place of that we move into that chrysalis, or that very deep place when everything is collapsing. We can move into this place of which ultimately can become a place of revelation. But it won't probably start out that way. It's going to start out just by suspension. So in this place, the hangman can process the activity of that 5 energy, which is Gevura. It's called Gevura on the Tree of Life. He can process the activity of Gevura without distortion over a long period of time, begin to process it and see it for what it really is. So this becomes like a corrective activity. And it's also, without thinking, it's an assessive activity. It's an assessment without actually thinking too much about it. It's a removal. And in this place, everything becomes understood as it should be understood. It's a primary reality. It's entering into a primal reality. And that's that place of going to sleep. Going to sleep in order to awaken. Go to sleep in order to awaken to what is actually true. So this involves what is called a turning about or an inversion. We become mirror-like in this inversion to reflect a clear image as we move to a place that goes beneath the rippling surface, down into the depths beneath the rippling surface. And down in the depths beneath the rippling surface is where we will encounter the revelation of the glory of the true and deep self. And the true and deep self is that which opens into the whole of the cosmos. So it becomes removed from cultural ripplings and things like that. We enter into a mystical sleep. And the mystical sleep is about going to sleep. We can say we go to sleep at 12 midnight to release into whatever may come. And therein, the individual consciousness releases and enters into the vast womb of cosmological consciousness. So this is called Path 23. The hangman is key 12, but it's Path 23. And it's Path 23 because as we have 1 through 10 on the Tree of Life, the 1 through 10 spheres, and then that's all the 1s going to sphere 1, all the 2s into sphere 2, and all that. But when we finish sphere 10, the major arcana, which is the Fool, key 0, the Magus, key 1, the Fool actually becomes Path 11. Because we have path 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's the 1 through 10. And the Fool becomes path 11. The Magus is path 12. The Priestess is path 13. And then on down. Those are the connecting paths on the Tree of Life. So we come to path 23, and that is the hangman. So the lesson of the path 23, the path of the hangman, is stabilizing and formative. How do we stabilize and how do we formulate? And it's interesting that on the tree of life, the diagram of the tree of life, the hangman between 5 and 8 is directly across from the wheel of fortune, which is between 4 and 7, is directly across. Okay, the lesson of the wheel of fortune is to learn how to become centered, to be completely centered, or as centered as possible no matter what's happening, and including with our consciousness expanding and expanding and expanding out. And so we want to be centered in the middle of the tree of life. The lesson of the hangman is to expand into the deep interior at the center of the wheel, to become still, clear, and purely reflective right in the middle of the wheel. Not so much expanding outward, like with the Wheel of Fortune, the lesson for the Wheel of Fortune, but expanding inward, going inward, inward, inward. Okay, and this is a retreat in the midst of action. It's repose in this watery womb-like place while this metamorphosis is occurring. And what's happening is that we are becoming the new living substance on the path of free will. This is a transformation of the individual, but also, and here we are, we're entering the year of the hangman. That's why we're talking about this right now, because this can also be transformation for our species, not just for as individuals, but it can be a transformation of the species, because in this place we encounter ideas eventually that are not previously known. So it can be a game changer. So in not doing, we can actually be doing a great deal, if you can follow this, okay? And I heard people talking about this idea of wanting to go inward earlier. So we want to go inward into the awakening. And somebody asked me, well, what's the difference between, this is kind of a random question, but I got the question, what's the difference between the hangman and the hermit? Because the hermit also wants to be at the center of the wheel. But let me put it this way. The hermit, each of these cards has a different energy. The hermit is a master energy, becoming a master. It may also be a removed energy, but it's an energy of mastery. So the hermit's like Yoda, like the Yoda that you encounter out in the jungle or the desert or something like that, okay? And the hermit can be something like a guide for us. We are the hermit as well, right? We're also the hermit. But in the hangman place, the hermit can be like our guide. So the hermit could watch over us while we're on our deep hangman journey. Maybe the hermit is our protector or something like that. So maybe the hermit within ourself is also the protector of ourself while we're on our hangman journey. Because in the hangman journey, we're going to be in the womb. So it's like a deep place. The hangman is like going into the cave and just experiencing the very essence of that energy. So this is a deep awakening, or a deep awakening awaits, and in this place that which we once believed to be true no longer holds. We start releasing. The message changes. When we stop, when we release, and when we become taught by cosmic consciousness, we become informed by attuning to this greater reality of cosmic consciousness. All of these cards have Hebrew letters associated with them, all of the major arcana, and the Hebrew letter associated with the with the hangman is called Mem, M-E-M. Okay, and Mem is water, primal water. That's what it means. And it refers to the cosmic sea or the cosmic matrix. Did you know that the word matrix means womb? That's what it means. And it's like we're in the matrix. We are in the cosmic matrix. Okay, so the primal sea, the cosmic water. And by the way, it is the same in astrology. The astrology connected with the hangman is also primal water. It's primal water. Okay, so which primal water is about it's the modality of the emerging soul. There are 3 Hebrew letters that are called the mother letters. One is primal water, Mem, the hangman. Another is primal fire, and that's called Shin, Shin, and that is connected with the card resurrection. And then the other one is called Aleph, and Aleph, Aleph or Alef, Aleph is primal air, and that one is connected with the Fool. So those 3 cards, or those 3 maternal letters, which are fire, water, and air, whirl together. It is said it takes all 3 of those whirling together to create manifestation. So this primal water is 1/3 of the equation for manifestation, but it has to swirl together with both the fire, which is life force energy, and air, which is consciousness. So eventually all 3 of those are going to move together, and everything in the world is going to be created out of those 3 letters, they say. The whole alphabet gets created out of those 3 letters, and those 3 letters being fire, water, and air, basically. Okay, so this is one of the major letters. So in this place, when they say when we enter into any one of those places, which would be primal water, primal fire, or primal air, we enter into a baptism. So that it's going to be a baptism by fire, baptism by water, or baptism by air. And in this place of the hangman, we enter into a baptism by water. This is baptism by water. We enter into this mystical baptism in the astral fluid. It's called the primal fluid. This is the fluid that contains and gives rise to life. It's the womb of all being. They call it the waters of Ein Sof, which means the waters of the world without end. And here there's a dissolution, there's a reconstitution, and there is a rebirthing. And we come out with the knowledge of solution, because we're inside the solution. And then we emerge with the knowledge of solution, which is pure cosmological consciousness. This astral fluid, it's called non-wet water. Non-wet water. It's the medium and matrix of the cosmos. Here the heart awakens. The heart is connected with the water. Love awakens. And as water is the power that bonds, it's the bonding and stabilizing mechanism. The heart begins to come forward and begins to connect and bond that which is disconnected. That is what we're headed for. That is what we're working with the hangman energy, and what we're going to be moving into this year. We're entering primal water. We're entering the baptism by water. And just for your information, there are 4 colors primarily associated with the hanged man that you can engage if you want to move more deeply into meditations on the hangman. And those colors are deep blue, sea green, deep olive green, and white flecked with purple. Deep blue, sea green, deep olive green, and white flecked with purple. The meditational mystery of the hangman is the idea that in losing ourselves, we find ourselves. In losing yourself, you find yourself. Let go, let go, let go. Go to sleep to awaken. And the affirmation is, I am born anew in the matrix of becoming. The affirmation of the hanged man is, I am born anew in the matrix of becoming. And today is a perfect day to enter into the hangman as the rain is pouring, and we can hear the rain, and it's coming down and it's beating on the windows, and it's enclosing us in this space of protection, in this sanctuary. So let us just take a moment in this place to enter even more deeply into the energies of the hanged man in this watery womb. And I'm going to play the bowl for a minute and just feel yourself going inside, inside, inside the energies of the hanged man, the energies of metamorphosis, the energies of dissolution and solution, and ultimately revelation.